All right, welcome into our reports on this Wednesday afternoon from Fort Lauderdale, where it's once again in the upper 80s, a little overcast, a little breezy. We had some rain come through this morning, but nothing extraordinary. I guess the big news of the day, the 3 suspensions by Clemson coach Dabo Swinney. Deon Cain, wide receiver, freshman who had come on to make for a name for himself here in the second half of the season as a big play receiver for the Tigers. He's been sent back home. Ammon Lakup, kickoff specialist and extra point man, he has been sent back home. J.J. McCullough, seldom used veteran tight end, also sent home. Swinney said at the press conference this morning, violation of team rules, but the reports that started coming out last night said that they all failed the drug tests that the NCAA has before these bowl events. So the Tigers will be shorthanded at those 3. And as Swinney said at the press conference, not a distraction for them. He doesn't consider, at least publicly, any of them to be a major loss because they were all backups. But I think Deon Cain certainly takes away from the passing game in that he had become a big game threat. He'd become a touchdown maker for them. He'd become the number 2 guy at that receiver spot behind the Sharon Peak. And so that means Peak will get more opportunities, more chances to go deep with him. But you also have to consider on the negative side is there was a reason that Deon Cain was starting to play more and get more shots down the field, and that's because he is a talent. Swinney did say that Cain will have a chance to rejoin the team at some point in the future once he gets his act together. And if he gets his act together, the other 2 are finished at Clemson. Lakup's a senior anyway. McCullough had another year of eligibility, but Swinney said he will be told to go elsewhere. All 3 have had previous issues with Clemson and the rules. So this is not the first rodeo for any of them along these lines, as you know. In fact, Cain, who's from the Tampa area, well, when the Tigers came down here to play Miami in the regular season, he was out for that game for disciplinary reasons. So 2 trips to South Florida this year, and both times Cain's going to miss the ball game for Clemson. But Swinney was insistent today that this issue would not be a distraction for his team, that in no way would it affect the performance of Deshaun Watson or Shaq Lawson or anybody else. And so he does what he does in these situations, and that is try to put the best face on it and be as positive as possible. And he took a number of questions in the press conference over it, but he gave a straightforward answer. He didn't dance around the subject. He did not offer up any details from the standpoint of what actually happened, so we have to rely on the reports that came out last night from people who should know and have very good sources. Something else to keep in mind about tomorrow's game is the weather, and that is, at 3:30 this afternoon here in Fort Lauderdale, it was 89 degrees, and we kick off about sometime after 4 o'clock tomorrow, whenever ESPN lets them kick off. And you figure the temperature is going to be in the mid-80s. It could be humid. So you have to consider the toll of the atmosphere, the climate, on players on both ends and which ones are going to be best prepared to handle the standpoint of the cramping, fatigue, things that the heat and humidity might bring on players who haven't played in several weeks. So this could affect depth early on. It could affect the quality of play early on, things of that nature. We'll have to see which team handles it the best there. And outside of that, I think both teams are just tired of talking and ready to play and see which one can put their best foot forward out there. And I think the one that does not turn it over or turns it over the fewest times, because I think these teams are pretty evenly matched when you look at the personnel. It's hard to differentiate between them. The quarterbacks seem to be very even. Running game looks even. Both teams have solid defenses. Both teams have a big play receiver. Kicking game looks pretty solid both ways too. So there's not a lot of difference. What makes a difference in a close matchup on paper is when one team turns it over a bunch and the other team takes advantage of it. So I think that's going to be a key factor in the game. If there are no turnovers and these teams play like they're capable of, it may just come down to who gets the ball last and is able to get some points out of it. We'll have more, of course, on the game tonight on Sports Talk. We're going to have Chuck Reedy with us at 6:30, along with Rick Sanford to break it down. The Governors at 7:10 to give us their picks. We'll give you our panel's picks as well, and we'll take your phone calls. We'll hear from Dabo Sweeney. We'll hear from Bob Stoops tonight as well, and others.